Damn, it's been bugging me for weeks now. Cody, say something about a transcontinental high-speed train system. Lordy. Oh, I guess it's only 12:30 in the morning. Seems later. A transcontinental high-speed railway station or system is actually already starting to happen. We're seeing local systems that are being created, and it's only a matter of time before they start to connect to each other. For instance, the Portland, since the 1980s, has had a really excellent system of electric streetcars, the electric Metropolitan Area Express, or the MAX, buses and so forth, and has been trying to extend their line across the Columbia River to Vancouver, Washington, which in a way is very revolutionary once they accomplish that, because one of the main problems or roadblocks that has prevented the creation of a Eurail, we might say a Eurail type system in the United States, is factionalism, fractionalism, the inability of local and regional governments to find consensus, to agree, to move things forward, to compromise, which really is something that as Americans we tend to not be the best at. But communication is the fundamental element of all these changes, all this progress, and we need communication to create a cohesiveness in order to get these things done. And in order to have effective communication, we need to be able to first effectively communicate with ourselves, and then to be able to extend that effective communication to our friends, our family, our household, and then out into the committee that we're meeting to form a rail system. Then there's Elon Musk, who I just really adore. Everyone knows who Elon Musk is, the founder of SpaceX, the founder of Tesla Motors, the first really real electric car, the creator of a really extraordinary solar panel technology company, and now he's really putting his weight behind the rail system that's being installed between the Bay Area and LA, and also Seattle is working very hard to create a better rail system, to create a rail system, and to push lines greater and greater outward. Imagine if our country had about a half a dozen main lines, say a western seaboard, eastern seaboard lines, and then one across the south, one and two through the Midwest, and then of course there's the Empire Builder line already through the north. But have a system of trains that are running at 200, 300 miles per hour or faster, which is not really a very revolutionary concept. It's being done in Europe, it's being done in Japan, it's being done in many places. But it's not being done in the US, and unfortunately that's a real oversight and a real unfortunate, disappointing thing, because we're clinging to these automobiles, and by clinging to the automobile, we're clinging to a lot of problems that we're hearing about every day, so I'll need to reiterate all of them, but we're clinging to unemployment, for one thing. Think of the enormous amount of jobs that creating a transcontinental, high-speed, high-tech rail system would create. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of jobs for politicians, lawyers, engineers, construction workers, electricians, plumbers, foreign train building companies. The streetcars in Portland are made in Sweden. Even for artists, if you look at all the Max stops and streetcar stops in the Portland metro area, every one of those stops has $10, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 worth of art that was commissioned by one or more artists. The current system we have is so embarrassing and atrocious, and I know Amtrak tries, but I love riding Amtrak. I pay more to ride Amtrak just because I like going slow and the kind of milk wagon Humpty Dumpty of it, and the train lines go to places that are really wonderful to see, and it's just much less stressful than going on Interstate 5 or these sorts of things. But Amtrak is so slow. The customer service and quality service is pretty low. It's not a viable option it doesn't present a viable option to having a car and traveling down I-5 between Vancouver, BC and Seattle, or points south, points in between, because it's so slow. It's kind of like saying, rather than take, how do we compare this? It's basically like walking almost. It's like, yeah, I think I'll take a Model T car down to Portland. One person's, it's like if you had an option to take a Model T, but you might choose to walk instead. It's kind of like what Amtrak is. It's like walking instead of taking the Model T or the Wells Fargo stagecoach. It's just not a viable option. A viable transportation system will have to be attractive it will have to have more benefits and attractive features to it to lure people away from having their own automobiles, which as Americans we're extremely caught up in. Textbooks could be written of our relationship with the automobile and our self-identity and so on and so forth, our position in society based on what automobile we have. We need a super fast system that let's break it down. Let's say we have a main branch line between Vancouver, BC, all the way to Mexico. Maybe one day all the way to South America, but we'll stop at Mexico, the border, south of LA. This line travels at 200, 300, 400, 500, 700 miles per hour between Vancouver and Mexico. It stops Vancouver, BC, Seattle. I guess it would have to stop in Olympia, Portland, Salem, San Francisco Bay Area, LA, and then the border. It stops at a handful of places. Traveling 100 miles per hour. It's very clean. It's very inexpensive. It functions very well. It doesn't break down. It's very accessible. It runs in the I-5 corridor in the space between the northbound and southbound lanes. In that median, this train would go between that median and all the way from Vancouver, BC to Mexico. It's accessible from all these places. And then we have this really fast main arterial, the Vena Veda Cava or something. Then off of that, the main hubs of these cities, we can run streetcar lines, or we can run max lines that connect to streetcar lines that connect to buses or electric buses. So you increase traffic flow. You take thousands and thousands of cars off the road. You connect areas isolated by region. You connect them not only physically, but you start to build bridges between places that have traditionally, historically had difficulty finding common ground. One of the problems we have in Washington is that the sensibilities and priorities and values of people west of the Cascade Mountains is often very different than the east side of the mountains. But due to the population distribution, how people on the west side of the mountains vote determines who's going to be governor, determines who's going to be senator, who's going to be judges, Supreme Court justices, all these things. Unfortunately, the truth is, as I understand it, I'm no expert in these things, but really the eastern sides of Washington State and Oregon State are really underrepresented by how the political system and the districts are arranged. And this is sort of a microcosm of the greater really problem that the United States is facing of extreme partisanship and the inability of people to listen and to find common ground. Whether we vote Republican or Democrat, whether we vote Socialist or Libertarian or Communist or Green Party or Progressive Party, which I'm hoping there will be in the next election, whether we vote for Big Bird or the ghost of Adolf Hitler, well, I guess the ghost of Adolf Hitler wouldn't count in my point. But my point was going to be that we share common values, essentially, the majority of us. We want to be healthy. We want to be able to afford a house and raise a family in a clean, safe, healthy neighborhood. We want to have jobs that adequately compensate us, that don't suck the life out of us. We want to have safe, healthy communities. We want to feel like we're listened to. These We want to be able to turn the switch and have the electricity come on, turn the faucet on the sink and have clean water come out. No matter where you are in this country, we share these values of these American values, and many of the values are also just human values of family, friendship, health, resources, having food, transportation. All these things we share. So we really aren't so different in the end. And it seems to me that if we can agree long enough to start building these rail systems, we can also come to the bargaining table and share a common vision, which will also help us to find common ground in other areas. And reducing the unemployment rate is a really big common ground thing to bring to the bargaining table. I'm thinking that we can sit and talk and vote and take things to court and all this, and we get caught up in all this splitting hairs. But if people, from what I've seen and experienced, when people share a vision, something that excites them, something that moves them, something they're passionate about, something that causes them to dream and think big outside of themselves and outside of their workaday lives and all these things, no matter what color people are or ethnicity or where they're from in the world or their religion or etc., all these differences, when people can get behind a shared vision, they can overlook a lot of the ego things that cause people to bump into each other and cause fractionalism and factiousness. I think a high-speed, clean, well-designed, fast, economical, environmentally friendly infrastructure building, high-speed rail system in this country is a vision that this country could get behind once it gets over the initial costs to build this thing, which would be are extremely high. Part of the reason they're extremely high is because of the entanglements of bureaucracies, which are tied up in graft, and the entanglements of contractors building these lines, because there again you have even more graft. So there's a lot of your cost to build these systems is not even the actual building, it's in the greasing of palms. But once we can get back past that, once we can build this system that will wean us off of, we can still have cars, we can still have gasoline and biodiesel and electric cars and wind-powered cars. We can have all these things. We can have the car that we identify with that makes us feel free and uninhibited and unbeholden to other people. We can still have those. But when we really are working or traveling or want to get somewhere fast for inexpensive and have a good time doing it, we take our train.